what we should say is that science, we don't know all the answers. So we don't know where the laws of nature came from. We don't know why the universe began in the way that
It's refreshing to me when a scientist just says the truth in a humble way and doesn't try to lean towards the world's point of view or whatever point of view, but just says, hey, this is how it is. Check this out.
Well, I think the distribution of information has changed so radically over the last couple hundred years, and particularly over the last 20, that you're seeing these trends now where more people are inclined to abandon a lot of the, even if you remain religious or you keep a thought or a belief in a higher power, people are more inclined to entertain these concepts of science and to take in the understanding of what has been observed and documented and written about among scholars and academics. And there's more people accepting that. If you look at the number of agnostic people now as opposed to 20, 30 years ago, it's rising, it's changing. And I think there's also, because of you and because of Neil deGrasse Tyson and Sean Carroll and all these other people that are public intellectuals that are discussing this kind of stuff, people like myself have a far greater understanding of this than I think people did 30, 40 years ago. Yeah. And that trend is continuing, I think, in a very good direction.
Yeah. I mean, what we should say is that science, we don't know all the answers. So we don't know where the laws of nature came from. We don't know why the universe began in the way that it did, if indeed it had a beginning. So we don't know why the Big Bang was very, very highly ordered, which is ultimately, as Sean Carroll, actually, you mentioned him, often points out, and he's right, that the whole difference, the only difference between the past and the future, the so-called arrow of time, is that in the past the universe was really ordered, and it's getting more disordered, and that's that necessary state of order at the start of the universe, which is really the reason that we exist. That's the reason, because the universe began in a particular form. We don't know why that was, so we will probably find out at some point, and it'll be something to do with the laws of nature. But so I'm always careful. I don't want to. Science can sometimes sound arrogant, right? It can sometimes sound like it's the discipline of saying to people, "Well, you're not right."
Yes, yes.
And it's not the discipline of saying you're not right. It's saying this is what we found out.
Yeah.
So I like to say that it provides a framework within which, if you want to philosophize or you want to do theology or you want to ask these deep questions about why we're here, you have to operate within that framework, because it's just an observational framework.
Yes.
So everything we've said is stuff we've discovered. It's not stuff that someone made up, right? We understand nuclear physics. We can build nuclear reactors, for example. So we understand the physics of stars. So we understand that the stars built the carbon and oxygen, and we know how they did it. We can see it, because as I said before, if you look far out into the universe, you're looking way back in time. And as you look back in time, you see less carbon and less oxygen. So we have a direct observation that in the earliest universe, there wasn't any, because we can see it. And now we see that there is some, and we know how it was made. So I think it's important to be humble when you're talking about science. And you're not saying, this is the way that it is. I mean, you are in a sense, but it's not able to answer ultimate questions at the moment. It's not able to answer even whether the universe had a beginning or not. We don't even know that. And I gave a talk to I was asked to give a talk to some bishops in the UK about cosmology, and I said, yeah, that'll be great fun. And so I went and gave them this talk, and at the end I said, I've got some questions. So if the universe is eternal, and it might not have had a beginning, if it's eternal, what place is there for a creator? That's a good question.
Right.
They didn't have an answer, of course, right?
An eternal creator.
But I think that it might be eternal, and we might discover that. So we don't know at the moment, but we might. So I think my point is that these other human desires, it's very natural to, religion's a natural thing, right? People, you see it all across the world in all different cultures. But I think that in the 21st century, religion needs to operate within that framework. If it's going to operate, there are still great mysteries, and it is appropriate to think about what it means to be human. And I've given you my view of what it means, but I don't think the problem comes when your theology or your philosophy forces you to deny some facts, some measurement. These things are measurements. We're not saying, it's not my opinion the universe is 13.8 billion years old. We measured it. It's like having an opinion between the distance from LA to New York. You can't have an opinion on that.
Right.
We know what it is. And it's the same,
Right.
It's like, these things, that people say the earth's flat or whatever. So it isn't, and we've measured it. So it's just stop it. But that doesn't mean you can't be spiritual and you can't be religious. I would say it doesn't mean you can't believe in God or gods. That's not ruled out.
I think it's very important to note that science is not the answer. Jesus is. And Jesus is the one who created the laws of science that we can observe and we can study to understand the reality of this creation. Science is not the enemy. It's a tool. However, people can use tools in certain ways, right? People can take science and begin to apply opinions to it and start coming to certain conclusions that are wrong. And then on the flip side, you got Christians who seem to be against science, and that's not right either, because we all use science to some degree, right? We're all interacting with the world around us to some degree. We're all using science to some degree, and we're all using the gifts God has given us. Even the atheist, even the agnostic is using the gifts that God has given to him or her. We're all using both because all are from God. Science is a gift from God. Creation is a gift from God. Jesus Christ is a gift from God. And I want to encourage you guys watching this right now, do not get caught up in the opinions of man. Just try to stick with the facts. Try to look at what is here and now, because at the end of the day, we live by faith. We don't live by ignorance, but we do live by faith. And faith is something beyond this realm that God has given to us to cultivate and grow. Just like the Bible said, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen, and for we walk by faith and not by sight. There is something categorically different that we as Christians have in this world, and it's called faith. It's not ignorance. It's not some blind thing that we're just leaning into. No, it's something that we feel, that we experience, and that we know that leads us deeper into a relationship with the one true God. It was this faith that the martyrs had when they died for their belief in Jesus. It is this faith that people lean into when they see miracles happen. It is this faith that the atheist doesn't want to rely on because of their own intellect and their own stubborn pride. And let me leave you with one more verse, that your faith might not rest in the wisdom of men, but in the power of God. Remember, men can be wrong. They've been wrong many times. Scientists can be wrong. Don't put your faith in simple man, but put your faith in the power of God, because God can change any circumstance and any situation, because God is for you and not against you. Hey y'all, the Lord bless you, and I'll see you in the next one.